Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
So Taylor and I wanted to take just some time to just talk about our year, kind of sum it up, and hopefully kind of give some encouraging words just through what we've learned this year. It's been a tough year for a lot of people. 2020 is behind us now, but there's definitely things we can all take from it and learn from it, and just yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of share our story, share everything that kind of happened this last year, and give some encouraging words, and we'll see where it goes.
Yes. So, like you said, we had a tough year, but it began really great though.
Yeah.
Actually, the first 2 months were really great. We were really both of our nonprofits were really taking off and doing well and getting momentum. And then obviously COVID happened, right? That was kind of the
Yeah.
back to a lot of things for a lot of people. And so for us, it happened at the time of us bringing in our fifth child. So when, everything is leaving the stores and we have no idea because we are literally, I'm like in labor giving birth to a baby. And then all of a sudden it was like, there's no diapers, there's no wipes. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. We'll figure it out. And that was kind of probably the spiral down from our year. Like that was such a highlight because we love having our sweet little one with us. But it went from there to you losing,
Yeah, to
yeah,
well to the lockdown, and then
the
and then I
lockdown.
lost my job shortly after that, and so yeah, it was an interesting start to the year because yeah, things were looking up for my nonprofit and Taylor's, and I had a good job that was getting us through, and then
Yeah, and then of course, when you like lose a job or something, then everything goes wrong in your house. I mean, we're talking like it became a joke amongst friends about our home being like the home of seven plagues. I mean, it was floodings. You guys, we were infested with ticks. Like it was bad. We don't know what was going on. We couldn't get it out of our house. We did everything. We had specialists. We had you name it. And again, we don't have money, and we're having to like bleed out money trying to figure these things out. We had a couple floodings. We had a few refrigerators go out on us, losing food and like all kinds of things. I mean, what else did we have going on? We had lots of weird stuff happening, just in our home. And then we started to have family members pass away. That was a really hard time because, like many of you, whoever of you have gone through that this year, which I hope is not many of you, but the sad truth is that it's most likely someone has, or you've known someone that has, and we both had family members passing away on both of our sides, and things didn't look the same. That's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, it was tough because we knew it was coming. We knew there was only so much time left with at least with mine, with my grandpa. But because of COVID and stuff, we couldn't go visit and we couldn't come out and see him before he passed away, and you know
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. That you don't think it's going to go that way. He didn't die from COVID, but still, like I
Yeah.
don't.
My side was we had much more tragic passing away. So mine was a very different situation. It was very off guard and again, not related to the situation of COVID, but it was just extremely difficult with the sudden deaths that were occurring for both of our sides. Um, and then, and then, so with Andrew losing his position, he was searching and searching, right? You were kind of seeking for a lot of jobs. And through that seeking, you were picking up a lot of little, what are those called? Like just little jobs where he was leaving for a month at a time or 6 weeks at a time, just to kind of keep the family going by. So we would just be like, okay, if he picks that job up, we would count how many more weeks we had until we would be out of money. We were like, okay, get another 6 week job. And that's really how we were getting by. We were just praying like, God, get him a random something. We were obviously, I mean, you were seeking really hard for a job. You were just applying. I mean, y'all, he was applying everywhere. He was like, we may, be living in Timbuktu by the end of this because, I mean, he was just click and apply to
Yeah,
everywhere.
Yeah, I guess at some point you kind of start getting a little nervous. You're like, all right, well, I guess we just need something for the time being. But no, but yeah, the since I'm still in the reserves, that's been good to us because that gave us a few months worth of employment after I got laid off back in April, May, and then that's what we're out doing out here in Maryland.
I haven't even
Another
gotten there
reserve
yet,
gig.
man.
Yeah, sorry, I
Just
jumped
kidding.
ahead, but there was I make fun of the reserve sometimes, but it's been good to us. So
It has. It's
yeah,
kept us going. But with him being gone, or taking these little short jobs, of course we're apart as a family, where other families we're like all stuck inside, which I think was a really precious and beautiful time period in itself. And I really do hope that some of you guys are able to reflect on that too, the time we've gotten with our kids and the time we've gotten as a family to refocus and to regroup, I believe has just been a really beautiful year in that. um, I mean, we have 5 kids, don't get me wrong. There was plenty of times we were hiding for some peace and some quiet, but but he would leave, and so I would be with the kiddos on my own there for a while. And so on one of the trips, it was the 6 weeks, and this was off of after doing like a month and a month. Like there was he was gone for a while. We made the decision that I would travel out to him with a few of the kids. The original plan, though, was all of us were going out for this particular trip. But when that whole trip was planned, it was before COVID. So we didn't realize that we were at some point we're going to make a tough call of, do we all go? Does no one go? Does some of us go? And we chose some of us, right? We chose some of us to go to Rhode Island to see him. And so I brought the boys and the baby, and we left the girls back with family. So with that, we were actually it was a good trip,
yeah, yeah.
but there were some warning signs. I want to just preface there were warning signs about this trip, and I would say that's a huge learning lesson for both of us on listening to, let's just say, the Holy Spirit. Right? Would you say that was a big learning curve for the two of us? Because there were warnings, and sometimes it's hard because you want to pray them off as fear, right?
Yeah.
You do. You just want to. There was a lot of praying off of the feelings that I was having. And so while we were out there, it was our last day, our last full day in Rhode Island. We weren't in Rhode Island. I don't even know where we were, but it was our last full day. And we get a phone call, and it would be evening for us. It was not evening back home. We were East Coast or West Coast. We were drastically far away from home. And we got a phone call, and pretty much the call was, there's been an incident with your daughter. And pretty much we don't know if she is alive, really. We don't know if she's alive, and we don't even know if she is alive. We don't know if she's going to make it. That's pretty much the phone call. No one has information, and all we know is that she was by herself. So all we know is our 2-year-old is alone, if she's alive. And that was the big question, if she was alive. And so at that point, I most definitely screamed and threw the phone because my warning sign and the stuff that I had been praying off came to fruition. And it was just a moment of like panic. I remember I screamed, I threw the phone. Andrew promptly picked up the phone, and I promptly picked up his phone, and I took his phone, and I was calling people, and I was texting people, and all I could say was pray, and then I'd hang up and go to the next person, pray, and I'm sending out messages. All the meanwhile, we still have no idea what's going on, because this is within a minute, right? It's like a minute of us finding out. I've already sent out a kabillion messages. He handed me back the phone, and while I have the phone, I'm just sending out messages off of his phone, and it was a hard time because we've never been faced with a situation like that, where there was nothing we could do besides pray. Like everything was stripped from us. Like most parents, like are able to like run to their kid's side, or they're able to know something. Like we knew nothing. There was no way for these people to get a hold of us. The hospital had no information on our child. They literally just took our child in, and like our child just to give you a heads up of how it went down, because it was such an emergency situation. She didn't have her name, they didn't have her birth date, they didn't have her age correct, they didn't have anything. They didn't have anything. And so, as parents that can't even get to their child, and that was hard, is one of those eye opening moments of when you really learn what prayer can do and the power of God, right? Like just that, um, the peace of his presence, because that's all we could really like do is just pray. And I remember a few minutes and just God being like, listen, like I love your child. No matter which way this goes, I love your child and you need to know that. And it was just like, no matter which direction this headed, God was in control. Like, there's no other way for us to learn that God is in control until that happens, right? Because I couldn't hop on a flight. I couldn't get back. There were no flights left out for the day. There was nothing. There was literally nothing I could do. I couldn't drive home faster. Andrew couldn't drive home faster. Andrew couldn't like rent a military plane or something and get us back there. Like he just couldn't. And it was hard. It was hard. But how would you what would you explain of like going through that, knowing we couldn't get back? Because you didn't, and that's something else in our stories. Andrew wasn't able to get back with us. Like I left Andrew at the airport.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just, first figure out how to get Taylor and the kids home so Taylor can be with Catherine. So that was kind of my main focus, and then if I was going to go home, I'll make that decision later. But, for now, let's just get Taylor home and then, I'll sort myself out after. So it was more just, just put into action, everything we can do, so call whatever, Southwest Airlines or whatever, and see what the best is they can offer. And, luckily we were able to find, instead of flying out of Rhode Island, she got to fly to Boston or something because they had earlier flights and, quicker flights and all that kind of stuff, so she could get there sooner. But yeah, so just for me, it was just, just start getting things done. We still don't know the outcome, but just sitting on your hands isn't going to do anything. And we had people praying for us to kind of sort everything out. And luckily, the change fee on Southwest was super cheap or something. And even though it was last minute and all that kind of stuff, yeah, and just
yeah. So it was.
Yeah, and then they took off, and
that was probably the hardest. I think the hardest was leaving you behind, like knowing like you weren't coming with us. And so when we did get phone calls finally, from doctors and stuff, some of the things that were said to us were, her stress levels she's stable, right? That was the first word. She was stable. That was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I truly in my heart thought stable meant she was fine. Like there was like, oh, okay, so she's like fine. Like she's fine. She's stable. Like there was no understanding of what that word meant. And when we were finally able to see her, she was hooked up to absolutely every single machine. She wasn't conscious. She was stable in the fact that they got her breathing. And I had no clue that that's what that meant. And I wasn't prepared to see what we saw. Like, I don't know if you were prepared, but I most certainly was not. I did not understand that's what that meant. But I wasn't prepared. So we learned that her stress levels had been higher than an adult could handle. It was like off the charts of that. She had drowned. We didn't say what this was from, but she had drowned. And so they pretty much said she was full of water from head to toe, like in her lungs and her body. I mean, just, it was water. So, and that was one of the only things we knew, that she was blue and foamed at the mouth and at the top of the pool. That's all we knew from when she was taken away. So that was the information we had. And I truly there was a lot of prayer. I just want to preface that all we really did was pray. And that was our first response, was to pray. And so when I did arrive, it wasn't even that when we arrived, it was, later we got a phone call, and that was hard because they finally got her awake. I would say that was the hardest part for me is when they finally got her awake. Um, they were trying to just make sure she had brain activity and everything like that. And I remember she was dead to the face. It looked like she didn't know who we were. We're trying to talk to her, and you almost just feel like everything is lost or something at that point because it's just like, come on, it's mommy, or it's daddy, or like whatever, and it wasn't registering. And so I think that was probably like one of the hardest for me was just like that. Like, do you know who we are? Do you have any brain activity? Like, what's going on? And she was just so dead to the face. And I just remember being like, oh my goodness, God, what's going on? And our son, who's with us, who's extremely close with her, just was like, Mom, you need to let me try. You need to let me try. And so we passed the phone back, and he was like, it's your big brother. I don't even know what he said, but he was just so like, it's me. Like, everything's okay. It's me. And all of a sudden, all we could hear was, Zaya? And we were like, is this happening? Like, she remembers, and it was just this like sigh of relief, I think, for everyone. My sister was the one who was able to go by her side, so my sister was the one with the phone, and I think it was relief for all of us to see that she responded. And she just kind of was like, Zaya, and she smiled, and then she asked for baby Victoria, our littlest one. So we showed her the baby, and I just remember she had such peace in that moment, and she just was like, oh, like, okay, like, they're okay. Like, I don't know why she wanted to make sure they were okay, and then she went back into, like, a slumber, and there was no more, but that's what we kind of left on. That was what I got onto the plane seeing. That was what he got. That was the last communication he received until I was at the hospital hours later. And I remember having a layover in Denver, and my flight was delayed. Y'all, I don't think I've ever wanted to be like, you don't understand, it can't be delayed. Like, I don't think I've ever wanted to be that person so bad because it was just ticking, and they kept delaying it. I'm just like, oh my goodness, God, like, come on, get me there. But we got there, we arrived. And I mean, y'all, we probably look like a special mission team at the airport because literally I get off the plane, I throw car keys, my like ticket for parking to my brother-in-law. I hand it off to him. He gets our bags, he gets our car, he does all of that as I literally just walk straight out of the airport into my friend's car with the kids. Like, I literally just walk straight through, get in the car, she drives me to the hospital while, my brother-in-law is doing the other things. And it just probably looked like this crazy mission of exchanges and like, just go, get there, go. And when I arrived, I just remember the nurse being like, we have no idea, what happened, but she's fine. And it was like, what? What do you mean she's fine? Like, every single test, she was not okay. She was not fine. The FaceTimes we see, she's not okay. She's not fine. She's hooked up. She's not breathing her own. She's in the PICU. She's in the pediatric ICU. Like, she's not fine. What do you mean she's okay? And that was probably a bigger mental backlash, like a mental, what is that when you like get whiplash? It was like a whiplash for the mind because I couldn't comprehend what was happening, and they couldn't comprehend what was happening. And they were like, we ran all the tests again, we did all the things again, but it's not showing as if anything has happened. And that was a beautiful call to be able to make to Andrew, I have to say. How did you feel when we FaceTimed you?
I mean, to be honest, it's all such a blur. Like, I don't like thinking about it still.
Yeah, it's hard. Obviously, you can see it's hard. Emotions run different between the two of us. The things that I've learned through this was the prayer, the power of prayer, the thought and imagination that people have as parents that you have control, you do not. That was stripped from us, and it was made very clear who was in control, and it was not us. Uh, but I truly believe we had the strongest weapon of all, which was prayer. And we went on our knees for that. And we are still, I want you guys to know that we are still very much dealing with these emotions because uh, I wouldn't call it, it's not we have survivor's guilt, but we almost have guilt sometimes that, our child, we don't understand how, say, our child is still with us when dear friends of ours and other friends of ours, like that isn't outcomes that have happened for them. And so I think we had struggled sharing our story um, because we want to be able to comprehend why, like why ours, why not theirs, or why this or why not that, or and I think that's been a hard thing for us, and those are things that we're still processing and we're still figuring out as a family how to get through and be moving forward in it. But we also want to still be able to share because we think there is hope in it, and we want to be also to share that power that God has given every one of you guys that are His children. That prayer is powerful. And it doesn't always look the same because, like I said at the very beginning, there was a piece we couldn't explain, and we didn't know if our child was alive or not. And so that piece came before we knew yes or no, what was that outcome going to be. And that is why I'm saying the power is in the prayer because we truly experienced it before knowing. And so I think some people might try to say like, oh, that came, that came before, that came because you knew she was going to be okay. No, that did not come because we knew she was going to be okay. That came because we were on our knees and we were praying for that, and we had an army of prayer around us and an army of prayer going out that we are still discovering to this day. And that's something that's brought me to my knees quite often, is when we hear from someone that's like, we found out and we sent out our prayer warriors and they sent to their prayer warriors, and then you randomly meet their prayer warrior who also sent out to their prayer warriors. And that is where it's just been mind-boggling how it's connected across the world. And we're all His people, like we truly are God's children, and they were praying so heavily over us and our family. Um, and even after that, we had more incidents that were extremely difficult on our family and on myself. And we had two more losses, and um, we had a lot happen, and we did run out of funds, and a lot did happen for us. But by the grace of God, thank you, Jesus, we were able to pick up a temporary position with about a week's notice, and we picked up everything and we left and moved across the country in Maryland. We left everything. We truly did. We just were like, okay, we packed up our two vans, whatever could fit in the two vans with all the kids and us. That's what came with us. And we are now living on the East Coast, somewhere we've never lived before. And are just recouping as a family. I would say this is something that we both have really needed. Our family has really needed. And God truly has just kind of, to other people, I think they would say, why in the world? Like, that's just more. But I feel like this is a time for us to rest right now, and that we're looking forward to 2021 as more rest and peace. But for 2020 itself, I would say, well, you talk, I mean, because you've talked about some of the growth that we've had in our.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I guess for me, leading up to the incident with Catherine, over the last years, kind of a part of my testimony that I won't get into, but a big part of it is, preparing yourself for future things that you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where things are going to go in the future, good, bad, ugly, all that kind of stuff. So I started this year, or I guess 2020 last year. It was like, all right, how do I better myself? How do I prepare, for whatever the future is? And just things like studying my Bible more, obviously, and trying to pray more and do all that. But one of the biggest things for me was dedicating myself to tithing properly, just really giving 10%. Every time you get paid, every time you get money, give it over, and then sticking with that after losing your job. Which I did, which was tough, but we stuck through it, and I mean, we're unemployed for, well, I guess 7 months, but a few of those months we were working with the Navy. But but we never missed the mortgage payment, and we never let a bill go by, and we always had food on our table.
And I want to say that's really a testament to the people that were around us and to the church, because we truly were blessed. People brought us
Yeah,
meals, people brought us food, neighbors got us diapers. Like, we were desperate at times, and random neighbors, guys, had given me wipes. Like, it's not like, I'm not kidding. Like, God was providing for us in very crazy and strange ways. Like, people would pay for my stuff at a gas station. I mean, like, talk about humbling when you're
yeah,
literally walking into a gas station. And I remember just like wanting to cry because I told the kids I would treat them out that week or something, and they could all have something from the 10-cent candy thing and have one like 60-cent drink, you know. And I remember this man just being like, he gave us more than enough money and covered everything. And it was like, geez Louise, like, we are really in a crazy time of receiving, and we truly had to receive. We had to learn how to
yeah.
receive.
That's apparently a skill that you don't naturally have, is learning how to receive gifts, because it was really hard for us.
It was extremely hard for us. We
It's
want to
very
give.
humbling. Yeah, it's very humbling. We love to give, and we love to help people out, and, especially when we can. But being able to receive gifts, like you want to say no, you want to say you're fine, and maybe you are fine, but in a couple of weeks will you be fine? But
And
then
that was hard because
yeah,
it was always being like, no, we're fine, we're fine. I'm like, you literally just told me we have like a week and a half left of funds. What do you mean, you know? And he's like, we're fine. So I
but
was
yeah,
like,
but
okay,
it
we're
was
fine.
it was really encouraging to see ways money or gifts came in, and we
Yeah,
got I think almost $1,000 check from a mortgage we closed on 2-3 years ago, and just weird things like that. And
it was really weird stuff. Yeah.
so that was super encouraging, and so obviously we've stuck with the whole tithing thing. You always hear it's all cliche, but like, you can't afford not to tithe, because you get you know not that you tithe to get blessed, but God will take care of you. It's one of the things He says, the Testament, and God will take care of you. Maybe not the way you see, but you will be taken care of. And so we've grown. Yeah, I've grown a
Yeah.
lot this year
And that's
in that
true.
in
We
that
did,
respect. Yeah,
yeah, we did talk about that. Like, we were not being blessed in the way we were seeking. We were seeking for him to have a job.
yeah,
We were seeking for certain things. And instead, God was like, no, but I will continue to keep you covered. And so the coverings were really odd and random, and but it truly allowed us to learn how to receive.
yeah,
We still totally try to give all the time, but but it's definitely taught us. He made it where we only had the option to receive. We only had the option to pray. Like, we only had the option to do those things, and we
yeah.
were
So
like, oh,
we were definitely taught how to rely on God, which led to the incident with Catherine, where I mean, that's literally all we had, was to rely on God, and
you
our
want to
family and friends, and
we're talking about Soph.
the prayers. Yes.
This is the last part. We promise we will end with this last part, but it's a good part. It's probably like the best part. It is our favorite part of the whole situation, of the whole story, and of, I would say, having a childlike faith. This
Yeah.
is, yeah.
So shortly after everything happened with Catherine, I don't know, a few days or something, Taylor was talking with Sophia. So Sophia, a little backstory, but Sophia was the one that found Catherine in the pool. She ran inside and got help, and they called the police and
And our
everything,
nephew, but
and
yeah.
the nephew, yeah.
Hmm.
And so Taylor asked her, like, well, Sophia, how did you know? How did you know what to do? And
Yeah, well, it was in police reports, and so it was like said to detectives and things, but
what was?
what she says.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, keep going. It was said, so I kind of had an indication to ask about it, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah. So yeah, Taylor asked her, how did you know what to do? And as a matter of fact and as straightforward and as much confidence as any 5-year-old would have, she says, I don't want to get it wrong.
It's okay. She
Yeah.
said, Jesus talked, or no, Jesus told me what to do. No, Jesus told me to run and get help.
Yeah.
And then she just looked at us like, I listen to Jesus, don't you? Like, it was just such an innocent question. Like, Jesus told me to run, get help.
Yeah.
He talks to me. Like, I listen. Do you listen? And I was like, do we listen? Like, we're like being convicted by a 5-year-old. I'm like, do we listen?
But yeah, just so it's, it was, I don't know. I still don't know how to comprehend it, but she just the confidence, I guess, she had that Jesus spoke to her and she saved Catherine's life.
Yeah. And I think that's where I come in. I think for us, probably being convicted in that whole childlike faith. Jesus said this. It's that simple. Truly, right? It's that simple. Like, Jesus said it, we do it. There you go. Like, what he says is truth. Like, he comes through with his promises and things like that. And so for us to see our own child being like, Jesus said it, I listened because you taught us to listen, so I did it. Don't you listen to, and it was just that moment of like, oh my goodness, God, like what would have happened if you didn't use these little children that were that young, to save our other one. So
I mean, yeah, because and stuff like that, every second is a huge difference.
yeah,
And we still don't know all the everything that happened, but the timing of Sophia showing up and immediately, hearing and listening to God and running off to get help. Like, I mean, yeah, a couple more seconds.
don't see, we're still processing, but we see all of this. We want to use this testimony though, even as we process as a family. Like, you can see that we still have heavy emotions around this. This wasn't long ago. This is only a few months ago. But we don't think of 2020 as this terrible year. And I think we're both kind of sick and tired of people saying how terrible of a year it is. Like, we get it. We lost jobs. Our events were canceled. Our house was completely, like, practically, the seven plagues. We lost a lot of people in our families. And we don't look at it as a year as that. We look at it as a year of growing in God, of knowing when to listen and to hear, because I probably told 12 people about this fear I was having of leaving over Catherine and the water and everything. It was a learning lesson for the two of us to heed that when we hear that again. Hopefully not again, but if we do, it's for us to learn. But we also were blessed beyond measure, and our faith was deepened beyond more than we can handle, like than we even understood could go. And as a couple, I would say that we grew well as well. Like, we, even as a couple, learning to go through these situations, you don't know. Like, you don't know what's going to happen between you and your spouse when something like that goes down. Because there could have been a lot of arguing. There could have been a lot of screaming. There could have been a lot of, like,
finger pointing and
yeah,
blaming.
if we did this or we did that or whatever, like, it could have gone a lot of directions. And so we truly look at this year as such a growing year. And we would have thought about that, I think, either direction because of the peace God gave us. And again, we're blessed that it didn't go that way. But I know we both were at a peace that only God could give us when we went through that. And so we look at 2021 as a year of just, I think, more ways for God to be able to utilize and to bring more people to Him and to show His glory and His grace and His love, no matter what that outcome of a situation is. But you want to end us out?
Yeah, so I guess kind of the big theme of the year, for me and definitely our family too, but it's just preparing and doing all what I kind of spoke about, but and leading a family and leading your kids and into Christ and a life fulfilling like that. But for me, I was doing a Bible study and stuff with a buddy, and one of the things we talked about was what is real leadership, and leadership is it's just taking one step at a time in a lot of ways. Like, it's not, you don't have to necessarily have all the big plans figured out. You don't have to know the outcome of everything or where your 5-year plan, all that kind of stuff. It's just, okay, what's the next logical step for me personally and for me, for my family, anything from it's, I'm not going to get angry at the kids tonight. I'm just going to lay with them and I'm going to pray, or something like that. Or I'm going to start, the Bible study with my wife, or just whatever the next step is, or even like with my job stuff. It's like I don't know what job I necessarily am going to get, but I need to. I'm going to reach out to this person. Maybe they have something, or I'm going to email this guy, like an old colleague, or
I wouldn't even call it like a logical step because we didn't always take
oh yeah,
the most like normal routes, and we're not in the clear. Like I told you guys, this is a temporary thing for us. Like we're still in the hunt for some stableness when it comes to a position. But yeah, like you said, I think it's the moving forward, even in the
yeah,
waiting.
yeah, and don't let the stresses bring you down. Don't yeah, there's about a lot of uncertainties out there, but being anxious about it isn't going to help anything.
And it's
it's
not
just
from God either.
no, it's not. Yeah, and it's just okay, I'm going to be diligent, God. I'm going to pray. I'm going to tithe. I'm going to read my Bible,
And there
and
were a
then
couple times I kicked you out of the house, and I was like, "Go figure that out." And you had to go work out. You go get a soda, and you would come back refreshed for a second, and I'd be like, "Just leave. You need a,
you need a minute.
yeah, you need a second." And it wasn't like often, but we still are human, and I think it comes in. And I think mine was like I would go and get something to drink, and I'd probably like sit in my car or like walk aisles mindlessly, and that was my like I need a moment. So, and we're not saying you're not going to have a moment. We're not saying you're not going to feel
Yeah.
overwhelmed or anxious at some times, because there were definitely times I was like, go work out, get out of the house. And there were times I needed to just leave and walk aimlessly around aisles, So we just truly want to give hope, though. And if you are questioning, even just questioning God or questioning those things, like I would urge you to be in prayer. Seek out someone that can maybe help be in prayer with you or guide you or share, their own experiences, because I think that's what really helps get us to the next step is that reaching out. And we truly had no choice but to reach out, I would say. Like if, we really didn't, like we weren't going to do that battle by ourselves. And so we reached out a lot, and we accepted a lot of help. So
yeah, overall, 2020 was a year.
that's what we call it. It was a year.
No, I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, it was a good year for us, for the long term. For our personal walks, for our walk as a couple, as a family, our walks in Christ. We grew a lot. It's been we've learned a lot. It has been a good year, and I think in hindsight, we'll look at it as a good thing. Obviously, with Catherine still being here with us was the most important. But yeah,
hope. It's just
yeah,
hope for you guys that 2020 is not as awful as it can seem. I mean, it is. There was a lot of awful moments. Like we're not gonna lie.
yeah.
Like there was a lot of awful
What a-
moments for us in this year, but we don't want that to overshadow God's glory, and that is really why we're probably irked when we see all the like 2020 stinks, because there was so much of God's hand and glory over it around the world too. So we just really don't want that to be the overarching thing of 2020, because there's goodness in those in the year. And so 2021,
yeah, 2021.
we shall see how it goes. So it'll be great, guys. It'll be great. But we just hope you guys have an amazing 2021 with, I would say, just lots of blessings and deeper faith. And yeah, you good?
Yeah,
We're
glad
good.
it's over.
It's over. We're still happy it might be over, but you guys, it is 2021, and yeah, we just encourage you to continue walking in faith. And if you are not in faith, always reach out to us. We would love to talk and share our own testimony further. So we hope you have a blessed year, and we'll talk to y'all later.